BBC Radio Oxford at 20 to 8. I was mentioning a few moments ago, the Sunday Times has an article this morning saying some of the UK's leading imams have issued a fatwa against British Muslims planning to fight for Islamic State. The decree orders all Muslims to reject the group's poisonous ideology and reminds Muslims that while they have a moral obligation to help the people of Iraq and Syria, they are bound by their duties to their home countries. What a time of international turmoil we're living in, not least with the conflict in the Middle East, the brutal killings by ISIS, including the recent murder of the journalist James Foley. But in a completely different iteration of Islam, more than 30,000 Muslims from the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community UK will gather this weekend to pray for peace, to commit to countering extremism in all its forms, and to vow to defend religious freedoms for all. Salim Ullah is a member of the Ahmadiyya community in Oxford. Good morning, Salim.
Morning.
Tell me about the Ahmadiyya community. It's a Muslim community. In what way do they differ from other Muslims?
Well, good morning, everybody. The key difference is that the founder, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, approximately 125 years ago, God told him that he was the Messiah, the returning, the second coming of Jesus that, everybody was awaiting. And in Islam, we also await the Mahdi, and God told him that he was both the Mahdi and the Messiah as prophesied in Scripture. He stood against all forms of cruelty, reaffirming that, Islam is a religion of peace, and that loyalty to one's country is part and parcel of Islam. What's going on in the Middle East is completely, whilst they do it, whilst it's in the name of Islam, it's actually completely alien to core Islamic beliefs.
This must be very difficult, to put it mildly, because the reputation of Islam for amongst non-Muslims, the reputation of Islam is taking a right kicking from the likes of ISIS. And have the voices of moderate Islam been caught napping?
No, I don't think so. Well, we're trying to do our best, whether it's trying to promote the message of peace and to put the message out there that peace, compassion, honesty, justice, that those are values within Islam. But unfortunately, the message of extremism tends to get more media attention, unfortunately.
You've probably heard me mention that there's a piece in the Sunday Times today saying that some of the UK's leading imams have issued a fatwa against British Muslims who might be planning to fight for Islamic State.
Well, and so they should. At this event, where we have, as you mentioned, 30,000 guests from over 80 countries, we, at the beginning of the inauguration event, is to hoist the Union Jack. It's hoisted aloft, and we have a guard of honour for the duration that it's aloft. Obviously, it comes down in the evenings, but there's a guard of honour that's rotated through as a sign of our symbol to our country and our love for Britain.
Well, I can read you, thanks to Fuzzy from Cowley, I can read you a text that's just come into the programme this morning, which is very much in support of you. It says the Ahmadiyya community are the model all Muslims should follow. For over 100 years since their existence in the UK, their pledge contains obedience and loyalty to the UK. Why don't other Muslims do this? The fatwa was a good start by the other Muslims, a little too late, I'm afraid, as the belief of non-violence needs to come from within and be taught from the very beginning. But it concludes, I love the Ahmadiyyas and wish other Muslims would follow their example in the UK.
That's very kind of him.
So you've got a vote of confidence there.
Yes, that's great. It's great. I mean, the purpose of this conference, really, as you mentioned, is to counter extremism. It's to establish a higher example of brotherhood and humility, to reflect on God's attributes, to improve our levels of compassion, honesty, and justice, and in all these areas, there's always room for improvement. And the idea is that we come away from this conference and become role models, not just impress the media, but in our actions and our conversations, so people, can see that there are, to trying to live to higher moral standards.
What's it like as a Muslim? You've made it clear, what you believe in. With those beliefs in peace and tranquility and so on, what's it like, just personally for you, viewing what's going on in the Middle East?
Well, I think that it's bringing. Firstly, my heart goes out to the women and the children, the innocents that are there. My heart really goes out, whether it's in Palestine, whether it's in Syria, or even the recent troubles or the Arab Spring, as it's called, the troubles across the Middle East. It's very sad. It's very sad for me personally. So all I can do really is ask God to, look after them as best He can, and we obviously all try and give financially in some way to try and alleviate some of that distress. And then obviously we're trying to change the views of the Muslims in Britain that may be considering going across, and trying to, whether it's in personal conversations, trying to deter them if we do bump into somebody that do have those kind of views. That's all we can do on a personal level. And
have you bumped into people with those sort of views?
To be honest, I haven't. Most people I've bumped into are loyal, do love Britain, are realise that those are views that are quite on the edge really. So that I think years ago I used to bump into people in and around London, but that was pre 9/11, that would have these kind of views. And again, through conversation, you try and bring them round.
That was before it had all got magnified to the volume at which it shouts now.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, finally, against a philosophy of love for all, hatred for none, how do you feel Britain is at the moment, and where is action required? Well,
Britain is a beacon around the world for justice. I travel extensively all across the world, and Britain's held in very high esteem. I don't think we really appreciate how at the level that people look at Britain, the good that it does, the friendship that it has, and the advice that it does give across the world. I think that that's all I can say really. I think on that in that regard.
Well, thank you for joining me this morning.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us, and I hope everybody has a beautiful day today.
Salim Ullah, member of the Ahmadiyya community in Oxford, and one of more than 30,000 Muslims of that community gathering this weekend to pray for peace and commit to countering extremism in all its forms, and vow to defend religious freedoms for all.